Welcome to the Falcon News Podcast. Everything you need to know to ship like a pro. In this podcast, we will be sharing our true experiences, lessons learned, and challenges faced in the freight forwarding industry. Today, meet Alex, the CRO of Falcon.
Today's subject is risk versus reward, understanding the high-stakes world of project logistics. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Mary.
What are the potential risks and challenges faced by a freight forwarder when transporting high-value or out-of-gauge cargo?
I think the first, topic that comes to mind would be limited liability, from damages and loss. I think that's probably the highest. The stakes are there. You deal with multi-million-dollar pieces of cargo where anything could happen. I guess a lot of freight forwarders kind of have to face the reality whether they want to go into this, niche market to handle cargo that is either very expensive or very expensive. So I think that's one of the things that come to mind. When it comes to challenges, I guess when on the risk side, it would be a financial, but on the challenges, I think, when it comes to project logistics, there's a lot of regulatory compliance issues that we have to take into account when we're, thinking about taking on such a large feat. As well as we have to deal with transport delays. When it comes to project logistics, it's all about time of day, day of the week, things we need to take into account when we're actually moving on both sides of the ocean, if you will. So that's something that on our side we have to take into account that not everybody will understand. So conveying that to, I guess, our clients, or if you will, our agents, sometimes it can be a little frustrating to relay these types of challenges. But there are obviously security risks. There are high value, pieces of cargo, but based on their size, they're not so easy to steal, which is great. But these are still things we need to take into account. And sometimes projects don't necessarily mean the size is big. You can deal with a very small, white glove type project, if you will, and the value is pretty high. But so these are some of the topics I would take into consideration as a freight forwarder, I guess, when dealing with these types of cargoes.
Alex, why do some freight forwarders avoid project cargo despite the potential rewards?
Well, there's a lot of risk for damage. So as I said previously, when you look at the possibility of transporting these, there's a high risk. So when you look, of course, at the risk factor, you have to also consider that some people might shy away from these type of demands. There's a lot of risk when it comes to multiple handling, for example. So you have to pick up and put on the ground again and over again these huge pieces that have large dimensions or heavy weights, and every time you lift it up, there's always a risk. Of course, on top of that, there's the cost factor as well. So the cost of overruns. So there's a chance to understand that you may not, projects are very different in size and weight and complexities. And sometimes you planned one thing, you planned 10 hours of work, but you run into 24, 48 hours of work. And how do you explain these costs to your client? So some people may shy away from taking on these projects just because there are a lot of complex situations that come along with it that you need to deal with, like explaining overruns to your client, for example, or explaining the risk to your client that there are multiple handlings. How will you protect against that? There's a lot of risk of damage as well. So, and delays add cost. So every time there's a delay, it adds costs, and it's a lot more costly to have cargo sitting on a trailer that's accommodated for projects than you are looking at a dry van. So there are a lot of risks to taking on these projects. When something is this enormous or this heavy, every 15 minutes, every half an hour, it costs a lot of money. So a lot to take into consideration. It may scare some people away.
What are the most common factors in project transportation that we as freight forwarders should be aware of?
Well, I think from my side, we need to look at the geopolitical situation, where we look at there are obviously, and there's also risks that something goes wrong. So how do we deal with that? Are we going to have a plan B, for example? So I think having a plan B in your back pocket is something that I would always, have available, which is something that a freight forwarder should always have. And know your geography, right? These are, for me, factors that are very important as forwarders to know, when you were planning shipping for our clients, know your geography, know where you're going, know where you're coming from, and obviously have a plan B. Look at rates. Rates are very important. So, know the market. If you're getting screwed, you need to know, you need to be able to provide something economical, efficient, and competitive to your client. So, and of course, as always, environmental conditions. These things always come into play when we're freight forwarders. As you know, there's disasters worldwide, so that's something that we need to consider. And insurance is one thing, and packaging is another. There's a lot of aspects, I would say, to freight transportation that you need to take into account when we're doing what we do for clients. There's sometimes we're teachers, sometimes we're guidance counselors, so it goes back and forth. But yeah.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for your insight in project logistics.
You're welcome.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please take the time to add your comments below and follow us. Go to falconfreight.ca to learn more.